more today. So, I'd like to welcome you to a presentation on Vicarious toolbox recognizing and responding to feedback. And this presentation will be provided by Professor Julia Ioane from Massey University. For your information, Professor Julia was one of the presenters today's in this version of the 5 years ago in March 2019, with Stephanie and also 5 and your market. So welcome, we welcome you, and this is our clinical psychologist, the only one who needs to be in this room. Welcome on board. Thank you for on the fire. All the secretary needs to be bold. I didn't want to get in trouble by welcoming you. So, they someone that from hospital and they didn't be welcome on the leg of anyone, and it's about the real. I thought to be my presentation of Vicarious form. This scripture that talks about well-being. Well-being is something that has probably gained a lot more publicity than what the definition means. And then I noticed what the very from my wife to one and right to the country. Yes, I am I want to think you're actually so much out there. But probably not probably enough. The most of us work in the area of things. I've been fortunate. I think that really effort quality opportunity to increment of quality and informal. And I practice. So I'm really privileged by all practice to go out to the community to do and work directly with our children, with our young people, parents, our students. I've been here to with them as well. I'm also someone. So if you have to ask my dad, what do I do? Because I'm a psychologist. My dad just shakes his head because I wasn't married at the time. I didn't have children. So I wasn't a success, And I was like, well, why do you somebody be a psychologist? Because if something goes wrong, you should either go training, go to church, or you talk to your family. So there are differences there in our profession and how that's seen in my country. So, when I practiced in Samoa, to go and work in Samoa. And while I was there, no one asked me what was my qualification. No one asked me, what did you have to study? Yeah. What they wanted to know. Can I do example? And do I know where I come from? I think we know that you come from places like New Zealand and like Australia, that you put it into your is it going to work in the community that you serve when you don't have the resources that we have? And dare I say it, you may not want the resources that we have at the same time. So I wanted to start off with giving you a little bit. I saw this in one of your guidelines. We want to create an environment for vulnerable witnesses to tell their story. And I thought that's a really good line. And the thing that I would ask you guys is, the environment actually starts with who you are. The environment actually starts with who you are, what you think, how you are feeling, because like the speakers before me, you can get all of this training and you can get all this great paperwork and great policy, but it's only going to be as good as the person who implements, and therefore that is each and every single one of you. So I just wanted to just highlight that the environment is a physical thing. It's not something that I think you also remember that you are just as important as you were implementing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little about wellbeing, and then I'll talk to you a little bit, or talk with you about some of the things that I've been involved in. But I'm also going to ask you to participate back. Yeah, so what is wellbeing? First of all, I want to be able to make it really clear. Wellbeing is not just about being happy, okay? It's about feeling good about something, it's about being able to function well, and it's about being able to deal with the not so great things in life because they will happen, and it can still carry on. And the reason why you can still carry on is because you've got good strategies to look after yourself, you've got good people that surround you, and you're able to mix some of the work. Now the other thing is you can end up with a sense of control, and then purpose as to why you are doing what you are doing. So, yeah, we all not worth making money, otherwise none of us probably be here. But it's not also hard to come by. It is something that we can more engage in if we just take time to look after ourselves. So there's been research up there that talks about understanding well-being in relation to better to understand it rather than to define it, because it's so varied. There's a lot that goes into that word well-being. I think the Samoans call it Olamangia, Fijians call it Prosecution. We take from those advisors and we call that an output, you know, about how we live well. So yes, it's about the quality of your life, whether you are satisfied, you know, with what you are doing and how you know you are satisfied, what you do and who you are they aligned with your values? You know, certain people will bring on our values. Are we implementing that and the way that we work? We have balance. Now balance is really important. That when we look at what we do, we're not just looking at our roles as lawyers or police officers or as psychologists, that we're also looking at the role that we play as a member of our family, as a mother, as a sister, as a daughter, as a daughter, and being able to have the tools, the support, and the environment we need to be able to be here and to be able to go into the same lives that actually live. So we have in New Zealand, we had one of our participants, this is going back in the late 1980s, or early 1980s, who were passed by the government to go out and what does comfortably look like to you? What does it mean to be comfortable? And we have some of you may know them, developed this qualifying model. So it goes across all our different communities that were living in New Zealand at that time. This was Wales, all of those groups considered. And they have what's known as the qualifying model. Now, the qualifying model is not named after this grammar. So again, it looks at the connection and the connection. So you have the culture, which is the ethnic culture. What are the values that you have to find? What are the values that define you as a new way? And that's what protects our well-being. Then what keeps us solid is our family. And that family could be our nuclear family, or it could be our extended family, it could be our village. And then we talk about goals. There's around mental health, physical health, spiritual health, and then other. And the other is about things like gender, sexual orientation, time, all of those things is what makes up physical well-being. So her definition, life that is spiritual wellness, is goodness, and development and love. And you can find works, it's just Google qualifying model, and it will come up. think the question to ask ourselves is not what is well-being. I think the question to ask ourselves is what difference does it make? So this is your 1 minute exercise in your station. How are you currently maintaining well-being? So if you can just discuss in your group, if we think about well-being, it's about quality of life, it's about doing what you're doing in terms of your values. Okay. How are you looking after yourself? What is one thing from your group that you are doing to maintain well-being? I'm going to give you 2 minutes to discuss that in your group. And then, and then I'll just ask you for one quick answer for each group. Is that all right? So I'll give you 2 minutes and I'll put time because we are on time.
The influence of having that work-life balance, church, and or you can talk to someone.
It's a really key that you can talk to somebody and not
Thing after work, and drink soup out of my liver. But it's on Sunday, just
now.
the telephone from other things. View of the question, I guess it's the spiritual well-being. It's the foundation of so every other aspect of mindfulness place. If your spiritual well-being is well managed and you have a personal relationship with God, then I'm pretty sure most of our people believe in God. So I guess that's the most important part of your well-being. And Helen will also
it's the same concept. So if we have a strong foundation and we believe it, which is God, everything else falls into place. So whatever comes our way, we tackle or face all the challenges. We have someone higher up to talk to. We have it to our even our family members. They're also like bring tell them something they. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, just exercising gratitude, staying grateful. Can you say a little bit more about well, it's something that I use every day. I wake up, I write down because I'm grateful. And before going to sleep, I have to say feeling the journal that's good. And that's what I stay present and focus on. Thank you. Thank you. But this one we have here is balance work. I think that was to carry out at home. We live it in office, we go home, spend time and also engage in social nature.
So we're looking at each or both, but think back home, I do many work. So get to experience what we does. So yeah, you know, going to sort of like or whatnot. But the other happy place is the bush. So we do plantation and the plantation the vegetable. Yeah. And share.
For our group in Kiribati, Tuvalu, in sports that are not competitive, but just
And industry,
Awesome.
the different things here. My apologies. Yeah, pretty much everything we did on the end family. Eating right.
Going to the nothing, yeah, I don't know no one. It's your going swimming at the beach, it's yeah,
Yeah, everyone, so you can see here that there are some great things that you are already doing in terms of maintaining all the stuff. So the question to ask is how often are you doing? Is it weekly or is it monthly? Or is it every 3 months? Or is it when I get the chance? And when I get the chance, probably not good enough, you know, affordable, because we need to be at our game. You know, we are working in very. So if we move on from here, we talk about secondary or vicarious performance. Now the thing is, I often find in my line of work that we as professionals, we don't really want to talk about this stuff, you know, because it's all about us. We just keep moving. You know, we keep moving forward. We need to serve our community, especially for those who were serving our own, who are walking into our own common family, start more families and so. And you know, the thing is, as human beings, if you watch a really sad movie, it's sad. If you watch a really good movie, you hear a song and it's a real fast, upbeat music, you know, it does it lift the mood up. You know, so why is it not being the same when we hear or when we hear stories that are told of a lot of things and a lot of change and a lot of and even more so we were hearing it in the mouth of us. Why would we not hear it? And why would we not have a response? And so secondary trauma is that emotional stuff that is led with us because of the work that we do. Because by hearing their trauma and we become witness to their pain, and if we have had similar experiences, or if we know somebody in our family has had similar experiences, then that feeling becomes even more violent, because it will remind us of where we come from, and it reminds us of what has happened to the person that has brought me to see them back. And that's the former and forward approach that David was about, you know, on Monday. But it's also really careful that we don't, you know, mix this up with burnout. Secondary trauma is one thing, burnout is another thing. And when we talk about burnout, it's generally something that have to know this time. It builds up and a change in you. If we go off and do something new, or we do something different, usually that can take skill. And when it comes to that. But I think the reality for all of us is to remember it's okay to be affected because it reminds us that we don't. The line of work that we do, we have to remember it. The key for us is what do we do when we are. So it's not a matter of if, it's always going to be a matter of when and how do you. So these are some things that you guys can think. What are your hours? Research hours. Now, when I talk about research, I'm talking about research that goes on in Australia, in New Zealand, and in the UK. So not necessarily research in your own. So just hold it. Okay, just hold it in the back of your mind. So what we know from research is that you do 50 hours or more. The longer you work, the less productive you are. Okay. We also know that if you work 70 hours or more, it actually is enough. And with those extra 15 hours. So this is the evidence, this is what the research is actually telling us. Because think about having 5 days on and 2 days off, because if we do that, it leads to improved productivity. Now, we all have a 5-day working week, but how many of us go into the office on Saturday or Sunday and do a bit of work? We could also try a 38-hour week, or 4 10-hour weeks, or 4 8-hour days. There are ways in which we can do it, but we have to be really strict in terms of when we finish working, because what the evidence tells us is if we're working 70 hours more, we're actually employing. If we're working 50 hours, we're being less productive. And there's a health issue involved. World Health Organization carrying out a study. We found that if you work on average 55 hours a week, it increases the risk of dying. But that research is actually being challenged. We've had another independent researcher look at that and say that we need to be involved in research. This research is applicable to those that come from low socioeconomic communities. So we need to do a little bit more research. But the general theme is working, and we're not looking at something. We become high risk of other high areas of the. So this is not meant to scare any of us, this is just to tell us the reality of what we are doing. So these are the things that you might see, in your work. You might see that you are constantly feeling that same, level of just uncomfortability, or the level of stress in the way that you're working. You could be crossing boundaries, in terms of your role as a lawyer or as a prosecutor, that you could be doing more than what you should be doing, and you are taking that work home with you. You could be thinking about your client a lot, constantly, even when you're at home, you're constantly thinking about your client. But you do have to balance it, because for me, I am thinking about my client because I'm someone. The young person, the young child that I'm for, I know that them, I like the auntie, and never mind me, my niece, and so forth. So I have to balance that, because there is a goodness about being connected to the community of the church. And you also have to be careful. You don't accidentally become of no use to the community because you're just constantly thinking about it, and you're not able to take your people. There's also been a lost hope, and I see this amongst our colleagues, the system that doesn't work. These resources aren't great, they don't last long, and so we have to keep the hope. So we have to be really careful. And I think for me, one thing that was me, when I first started out my career as a psychologist, I worked with an organisation that dealt with full-term young people in health, with harmful sexual behaviour. So different to this group, I'm more on the other side. I'm working with men, young people engaged in health. But almost all of the time, a lot of those young people, they also been sexually victimized. But we dealt with the offending behaviour, And with me, I can reclaim the story of what. And I still remember the time we got this referral, and it was a young boy, I'll make up the age, probably about 14 years old, 14 years old. And he was being referred to us because he had been caught touching his younger sibling for a period of 6 to 8 months. So the younger sibling. Now, the first response that we had as practitioners was, oh, it wasn't penetration, wasn't anything, you know, like anything, you know, too significant, but was that. I remember looking at each other and going on the watch. We're saying, in a way, we're just seeing on the same thing. And that's when we hear as a group, we need to be careful because when you listen to these stories too many times, it becomes your normal. You know, and that's what we have to be really careful of. And it is not normal. But yet it does seem like it because we're listening to the same thing. So we have to be really careful. We have to be really careful about how we work with these communities. It wasn't uncommon for me to go to families and the Pacific Church would say, oh, just wish that he had done something violent. Not sexual, but violence. Because it was going to be far more acceptable to do violent offending than sexual offending. So these are the other things that you might see in your own life. Like poor mental health, worry, not being connected to your spirituality, loss of relationships, breakups, those sorts of things in and out of relationships. So these are some of the things that you might see, whether that be in yourself or whether that be in the other group. All of this tells us that we are not functioning at a good state. We are good enough. But is that good enough, acceptable for your clients and for the community that you are actually serving? That's what we have to ask about. I was going on to say that is good enough. But really, is that for the communities that we serve? So these could be the signs of feeling helpless, not wanting to get out of bed, always thinking there's not enough hours on the day, I'm never going to get through all of this, I just can't do this. Thinking about hypervigilance, I need to really keep an eye on everything that's going around. Okay. Who's safe around me, who's safe out there in the community, and being open vigilant. There was a period of time where I used to look at every male in my extended family and just wondered. And that was because of the work that I was involved in and how families were often the perpetrators of sexual crime. And then we have the diminished creativity is all about we just don't know the answer anymore. There's just no solution. That itself can be a woman time. When we minimize it, just like I did, it was only something. At least it was it's not that big of a thing. Then we could also be really, really tired. Or we notice ourselves constantly being sick. And being mindful and being a real person. Now, so these are some of the things. There's a whole heap of science just to be wondering. Don't worry, there are some good things too. But I've got this cartoon here. We've got two mice talking to each other. One's in a trap. And the mice used to sitting there going, I'm sorry, here I am going on, and I haven't asked you a thing about being caught in a trap. And I wonder if that happens to any of us. You know, we're constantly, we're so busy with what's going on that we forget about who's in front of us. Or we forget to think deeper because it's good enough. We know what's there. Or the grandiosity part, it has to be me that carries out this work. No one else is going to be able to do it as good as I am. Even though I've no time off the day to do it, but I'll be the one to do it. So these are just the things to be asking yourself. And if you're thinking about how am I managing now, these things really good. Okay, the things that you have noted down are really good. And my nudge back to you is how often though are you actually doing them? Because some of us can say, that's all right, don't worry about that. I'm fine, I don't need any support. Some of us have got alcohol. Now, alcohol is a good coping mechanism, but if we drink too much, just like everything else, if we are drinking too much, that what can that do to the way in which we think about and our ability to start. Poor relationships with boring activities, so maybe think I'm not going to yoga, for example, because I'm just feeling too busy. And then, right? And then just eating on the run. How many of us just eat on the run because when we haven't figured out what we need to eat for our lunch, so we'll just go to the nearest cafe and buy and square with it. You know, and even water those things. And if you think about the formal planning model, all of these different things, mental health, physical health, spiritual health, cultural health, all of the different things that you can do can easily fall into all of those dimensions. So this is one thing that I think we're really good at. Laughing. We are really good at humor and using humor to get through things. And there's a goodness in that because it does work. When it starts to work up to the year, some of that stress that we go through. What we have to remember is laughter is not always a measure of. Sometimes it's just a measure of how much we want to hide of what's going on. And back in New Zealand, communities here are so good at using laughter as a way to life. It's not uncommon for me to speak to a young female who would use her father or her uncle, and she will laugh at them. And I know that that's her trying to cope through the sadness and the pain of what's going on or what's been going on. And I have to sit with that with her and walk alongside her for where she can then really be honest with her emotions and be able to come to terms with that community. I think the other big thing for us is specific. We pray. You know, our spirituality is probably, is what was said by this table, fundamental to the way in which we see the world, the way in which we live our lives. And on the other hand, for us in New Zealand, some of our communities have also been hurt by some of the leaders in our churches, and being hurt by some of our youth leaders in the churches. So it is tricky, you know, and we have to be really careful, okay, about where church falls into support. And some people, you might have a strong reaction to that, but for us in New Zealand, that's what happens about our church is a protective factor, but it's also tricky because some of the hurt has come from within the church, just like some of the hurt has come from within the family. So what you guys have to remember is the work that you do is really, really hard. As a psychologist, I know that when we are working in the areas of sexual offending and sexual abuse, the common line that gets shared by us is you can work in that space, you can work anywhere else. Because it really is a hard area to be working in. But just because it's hard doesn't mean that it's not possible. Otherwise, if it was easy, none of us would be able to work. The reality is we have to recognize the difference. We also must recognize that it can be rewarding and it is challenging. And we know through various studies that there have been out there on lawyers. There's been quite some interesting stuff there with lawyers have been interviewed in the different workplace. This again is not common typified in probably that's carried out in Australia and New Zealand, the UK and so on. So 90% of lawyers contribute alcohol abuse in their workplace. 48% is just under half confirmed drug abuse in the workplace. 86% of lawyers believe that there was depression in the workplace. So you have to remember that secondary trauma doesn't fit all, because we are all human and we are meant to feel. Okay? And if we feel, we are connected. We have to balance to what extent do we feel so that we are not inadvertently creating further harm for our community. If you ignore it, there's all that lawyers stuff that comes into it, malpractice and infection, you might start being away from work. Absenteeism. You might be at work, but you're either unproductive, so what you're doing is actually not doing anything, or you're underproductive, and then you're not actually functioning at all. Or you end up leaving, and for an organisation that there can be often high altruism, of our, lawyers. I don't know, this is purely anecdotal, so don't quote me on it, but I remember some of my, mates in the years service in Auckland going away, because it's just a lot of work, and there's just not enough ways to be able to look after these carefully. So I want you to think about your office, and I want you to think about your workplace, and ask yourself, where do I work? So think about the geographical environment, the location of where you work, and think about the time in which you work. Where do you work? When do you actually work? How do people contact you? When are you contactable? Are you contactable every whatever time? Before 8 o'clock in the morning, or after 5 in the afternoon, or in the evening? Think about those areas of where you are contactable. But the difficulty for the era that we live in now, compared to 2 years ago, is that now we can work from home. Where COVID allowed us resources to work from home. So it was great when the pandemic was on, it's still going. Lockdown forced us to work from home. The downside of that is that home then became a workplace. So it's about how do we separate from it? And now we can access email. Now we can access phone. And now we can do texting and see things on social media. So now we're a lot more accessible. So we have to put in the boundary to ensure that we are looking after our time. How many times a day did you guys think about a case for a client that you were working on? And does your brain think about work even when you're not at work? What cases trigger you? And do you know what cases trigger you? And so what do you do when you know those cases actually trigger you? And do you have difficulty sleeping when you think about work? And you have to recognize that. I'm a psychologist, so I need to have all those wellbeing strategies perfected, right? When I'm stressed out, I look at it. And I've got a lot on my plate, I will. So I have to acknowledge that and go, okay, I need to put it in the file. Otherwise, I'm going to be up for this time. And I have to be realistic, myself. Does work cause you stress? Yes, it's meant to, because this work actually really hard, but if you are not going to do it, who is going to do it? So yes, it is stressful, but stress doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. Okay. And then lastly, what? So, already talked about it. Think about the organisation that you're in, having wellbeing development speakers come through and talk to that. And I would say in the Pacific Islands, do what you're doing just now. Share your knowledge of what you're currently doing with each other in the different forums that you are in. We have professional programs that come, but if you've got somebody that's really good at yoga, could they come and teach about those things, about how to do yoga and so on. It's about being creative and innovative with the resources that you have. As an organisation, reduce the workload, because it's better if you do 2 or 3 things really well than do 10 things and you're not being good at all. So, this is the challenge though, about reducing your workload. So your mindset change and recognising that as well. And I would say maybe even mixing your work. That it's not always looking at sexual abuse, or if you have the chance, being able to step out and then step back in. I don't know if it's something that you can realistically do in the workplace that you're in, but it's also about thinking, how do you actually bring all these other activities and make that just as important as the work that you're doing. So if you think about the full flooding model, so you've already talked about physical health. Some of you do sports, some of you do yoga, some of you do the plantation work. That's all part of the physical health. But I think just like my colleagues who spoke earlier this week from New Zealand, all of those goals, we want them all to be just as strong. Okay? So physical health is one thing, spiritual health. And it's not all you've got the church, you've got prayer, but what are other things that feed your soul? I know for me, what feeds my soul is when I hang out with your positive people. You know how sometimes you've just got good mates that just set you up on a buzz and just make you feel really good. Sometimes you need to have them, to have that kind of good for your soul. Mental health. So some of you have already talked to that, talking to someone that you trust and knowing that that can actually be useful. But when you're talking to someone that you trust, what you need to be able to get from them, and I'm not sure, is so what do you do now? Because it's one thing to offload and talk about these are all the terrible things that have been going on. Then being able to walk away from that and know this is what I'm actually going to do. Then you've got cultural health. You know, this is asking us about my values as a Bilingual lawyer or as a PILON, a prosecutor. Am I walking the values of my people? If respect is a value, how am I implementing that every day in the work that I do? If reciprocity is a value, how am I giving back? How am I actually doing that in the work that I do? And in family health, how many of you go on date nights with your partners? How many of you actually spend one-on-one time with your children and it's part of your week, of your schedule? You know, because these are all the things that will hold your body. And you have to realize that sometimes in the work that we do, one of those balls will get a little bit shaky. We have to expect it to get a little bit shaky. But because everything else is strong, they can hold that weak ball for a period of time, okay, until you can build your resilience up. So it's recognizing those things and just being able to just do that check-in. These are form quality model. How's my cultural health? How's my spiritual health? How's my family? All of those things check-in and together I'm on the right track. I do want to introduce this concept, and I think you guys have already spoken about it, which is what we call supervision. But when I work with our Pacific lawyers back home, we changed it from supervision and we call it son-in-law. We refer to it as son-in-law because supervision kind of smells, you know, you're being supervised. But what on earth is that kind of supervised to a lawyer? Very different. So we refer to it as son-in-law. Because if we cannot question the way we are doing things and thinking about things at present, it will not occur to us that things could have been thought of or done differently. So son-in-law is not operational. We're not asking you about doing, you know, what are you actually doing in the work, not gatekeeping. But what it is, it's about keeping your client and those who are trusting you safe. And it's not just about you, it's about you in terms of keeping your clients safe and keeping yourself safe. So these are all the different things, all the different areas, okay, in which son-in-law occurs. But it gives you a safe space where you can explore your identity, yeah, and the work that you do, including impact on you. So it's asking yourself, what was it like when I've been in business? What was I thinking in this space? And having the opportunity to be able to talk. Now, these are all the things that, this is the process of how we get supervision in New Zealand and maybe in Australia, but this is how we do it in New Zealand. I won't go forward, you guys can, you'll get access to these slides. But the reality is, you don't have the number of psychologists, counsellors, and psychotherapists that we have. Okay, that's the reality. We even have a judicial wellbeing service where the judges access psychologists, okay, and support them in terms of their wellbeing. But for me, I think it's your way, son-in-law in your way, son-in-law in your style. And I think the first thing you must agree on is your boundaries, because one of the things that I learned from son-in-law is not much was confidential. You know, that's the reality. And I used to always compromise my ethics as a New Zealand trained psychologist, because it was like, we should hear this, but this is the way we do things, this is what. So you have, so it's about agreeing on your boundaries. what is confidential and whether you can cut. And that's because it is about really giving, you have to be trusted and they have to trust you as well. So you can have a structured discussion. You can talk about, you can go through into checking in, bringing yourself into the room. What's going well for you? What's at the top of your mind? What was it like for you, those experiences that you had? You can look at it in terms of sharing your practice ideas. So a bit of this, what you just did now, sharing the different knowledge, that's powerful. Sharing issues, ideas, and recognizing that you cannot, nor should you do this on your own. I had a really good friend of mine pass away about a week ago, and Banana, because of Holland. And one of the things that he said, and this is a Samoan proverb translated into English: no one stands alone, no one succeeds alone, and for me, no one suffers alone. And I think for me, it's recognizing that we are not alone in this work, and we shouldn't. And this is about tapping into the resources that you have with each other to create your own cycle and talk about things, because the solutions are right there within your own villages and within your own money. So the question to ask is, do I want to be this funded, which is good enough? Okay, it's good enough. Do you want to be this funded, where there's a lot more in there, you're a lot more robust, a lot more, and apologies if people might have this funded. Let's go with it. Let's go with it. We're just going to say this is a special one. For the very stuff I could say. So be creative. Funeral right. That's one thing. Don't need any extra resources. Right about this period. Have me time. Enjoy just hanging out with yourself and being okay to hang out with you. Connect with other lawyers and stuff, not just to share knowledge about the work that you do, but also to share your well-being tips. What are you doing to look after you? Look after each other. And maybe when you have your meetings, have a standard agenda item that talk to ask about well-being. Okay, how are we all doing? What's everybody got going on? How are you feeling about it? And making it part of your agenda item when you give your meeting. But these are all the things that get in the way, right? No time, no need for it because we're all good. Too scary because I have done this before, so maybe or the reality it won't work. Okay, suddenly it won't work because the issues are not mine, it's theirs. And then there's also the shame. The fact that you've been able to do this part of the so the indeed become the barrier for having another law or for looking after our well-being. But this really gets in the way for us. It's not the specific thing to do. We don't talk about these things because we should just be able to get on. We are resilient. And I think that's one of the biggest learnings that I have had on working in the islands, is that there's a, you guys have a higher tolerance than what we have back in New Zealand. I'm mindful there are no good perspectives, guess what I say. You know, but you guys can put up with a lot more, and I think it's because, and I say this particularly, I think it's because this is who you are. You know, you've been able to tolerate the things of what you get. You know, and I think there's a resilience in there. And then we think, well, we should do, we don't need to tell them all about this. What my dad would say, you don't talk to strangers. You don't talk within your family. Then we have, you know, our faith, we should be trusting them. But my mother always used to say to me, you know, you don't know that God may have put an angel in front of you. And there's someone to be with. You know, and maybe he answers prayers, not in the way that you want him to answer, the way he asks. And then there's always a confidentiality they brought out. And the reality is, I always have to say to my, especially when that someone is look, I do know this person in your family, and it's a gift for the Lord for me to talk about what you and I have shared. And if I do see something, because we all mix, and then I'm not going to say hello. If you want to say hello to me, that's absolutely fine. But if my family asks me who you are, I'm just going to say that you're a friend. So it keeps it really tight and really clean. And then I think the other thing that gets in the way, as I said, is because at the end of the day, they are our families and they are our communities. You know, you are all working in the communities that you live in. And so we should be able to even some of the bigger. So, I think what you could do when you're in Talanoa is make sure that you provide time and space for effective practice. And you can also ask yourself what does happen and how does it make you feel on having you in these places. Use the Talanoa as an opportunity to talk about your relationship, the good, the not so good with your colleagues, about your colleagues, sorry, about professionals, and sometimes even family, because it can also impact on how we go out and do the work. Okay, and recognize the needs. It does work because the research has shown us that it works, but we hold that disclaimer. We also know that it can reduce stress. We know that it's better for, and we know that it's better outcomes for our clients. So this is what the evidence is showing us about supervision. And but I report it about specific words and practitioners. We call it a felony. So this is what some of the lawyers have said about supervision. And so often gives me a new perspective on clients and on myself. I will ultimately making a better colleague and lawyer. Another one said for me, intervention to reconfigure my mindset and working with clients, really more confident. An invaluable mix of assisted self-reflection, discussion around how to unpick those everyday knowledge. And then it's really important to be able to talk through why things affect us the way they do and work out the best together. So this is what some of the feedback from some of the lawyers have engaged in supervision. Those that see me in supervision didn't want to, because what we've done in New Zealand and family courts is that it's kind of a really strong nudge for lawyers to go and get supervision. So when they come to see me, it's sort of I don't want to come here. I need to come here and listen to it. And so for us, it's about having a last one. So one thing that I want you guys to think about as you have your discussion group tomorrow is what is one thing that you will do differently. Okay, what is one thing that you will do differently when you go home to look after yourself to make sure that you are at your best when you are doing the work that you do. You've got some great ideas here. And the challenge for you is how often you do it. How often do you actually do all these great activities that you can highlight? Because if you don't have time for wellness, you will be forced to make time for your wellness. So I close off with saying, aim to be the most effective version of yourself and all your roles and all your ideas. Kasi dia mo ya beno pinaka me baka kalungata communicate you're asking about me. We were asking a question. Yeah. So as a psychologist, we have to have this. So it's a legal requirement in our role that we have. That's one thing. I also have therapy because it's really good to have therapy because you get to talk about yourself. And it's all right because, you know, as specific people, we are always thinking about our families. You know, because that's the way we are. We are relational, right? Our identity is only because of our relationship with our families. So I have that, you know, to be able to go off and talk about myself in a very confidential space. Okay. Other things that also help me is I try and run. You know, that's one of my sports. I try and run. I'm not your specific person that was good at sport. I wasn't thinking about my sisters, but that, not me. And then I also have church. Okay, church is another thing that I do, that I go to, and if I'm not able to go to church, my mom always say, church is not a building, church is food. Pray for if you are, and you're feeling the spirit and that's okay. And then being able to talk. the one thing I try and avoid doing is always asking them down, what are the values that I'm walking? Am I being respectful in the way that I spoke to them? Am I being cheapest in the way I did that with? And I avoid being my own critical friend, and then afterwards picking up with really good people. You know, because sometimes our friendships, some of them can be a bit nasty. You know, so it's recognizing who are the people that can help us because but yet expect some of the. But you will all have your own ways, doesn't matter what you. Do I like this case? No. No, I don't. Do you make a plan to make a difference? Yes, absolutely. Because I'm dealing with clients who come from backgrounds where they haven't been trained, where they haven't been acknowledged. You know, so any little thing that came through, I will acknowledge. And it might be something that I think, oh, that was my niece or my nephew. That's just what I would expect. But with the kids that I deal with, or with the families that I deal with, they are families that have come from really hard backgrounds. So if I can actually praise them for something that they have done, then it gives them there's a good feeling that they have. Just like we're like, you know, when somebody tells us that we've done something, well, we all feel that, you know, they keep it. So yeah, I do that absolutely with my clients. And I make sure that I'm clear on what it is that I'm praising them for. So it's more than just say, oh, it was really good. I actually would find that that was really good when you said that, or when you did that, because it made me feel. And I say, yeah, absolutely, I do. I think praise should be part of it, but what I personally is and I think that just comes from being specific. You know, we don't like that, but people absolutely talk about it.